Hi guys, I don't know how we got here. I don't know how it happened so quickly, but time for another stinking wrap up. Somehow we managed to get all the way through September in the blink of an eye. I don't know how it happened. I don't know where I was. I don't know why no one told me that the month was over, but it happened so stinking fast. I'm really excited. I have a lot of books to show you. Only 8 technically, which is kind of on the lower end of our reading months, but I'm still excited either way to show you guys because I feel like we kind of stepped into, I don't know, we found some new books, new authors, new stories that we're really excited about, ready to like continue with, and then we definitely found an author, specifically just one that I'm looking at that we know for sure we will not be continuing reading any of their stuff. So let's start off with a couple stats, shall we? On my Notion, I have a little section of my monthly little spread dedicated to the stats. Sam and I read 2,908 pages, 8 books, and our average rating was a 3.93. A pretty average, decent month, I would say. The first book that we read this month was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This is the first book in a trilogy. In this book, you are following Elle, who is our main character. She is a sorceress, and the way that the magic system in this book works is there's magical beings, and instead of having like their own magic like within them, it's kind of like they have to build it up, almost like a charged battery. This sorceress, this main character that we're following, in order to do the magic that she needs to do, cast spells, stuff like that, she actually has to put in effort. So you're going to be seeing scenes where she's doing push-ups to be able to get a spell done, she's cleaning her room really quickly to be able to get her homework accomplished, stuff like that, which is honestly kind of funny. I've never seen magic portrayed that way. When our main character hit a certain age, she was sucked up into this school and she cannot leave until she graduates. You're following all these classes, you're following all these kids. The school, it's on such lockdown. It's so hard to get into because they're trying to keep these students safe. There aren't any teachers, there's no professors. It's more just they teach themselves and the school teaches them. So the school is like kind of alive almost. It's very interesting. We ended up giving this book a 4.25. We really liked it. The only thing that kind of kept us away from being really obsessed with this book and all of the dark academia vibes that it gives is actually that it was pretty slow to start. I mean, that's pretty normal based off of it being a fantasy book and having some sort of series along with it. It makes sense that it took a little bit to get into. We definitely think that we're going to continue this series. We bought the second book not too long ago actually. The next book that we read was Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. We ended up giving this book a 4 stars. We really liked it. It just kind of felt a little cringy at times. Basically, you are following Allie, who is a professional organizer as a job. She's a mother. She is currently becoming an ex-wife, and she has recently lost her mother, and so you're dealing with her going through her divorce, trying to be a parent, a single parent at that, trying to deal with the grief of losing her mom, trying to figure out what she wants to do for her career. Her whole life is kind of a disaster, honestly, and you're following her falling for a guy, and it's starting off as just a summer romance. I really enjoyed all the topics of grief and talking about being a single mom. Definitely super interesting to see her side of everything, especially like going through the divorce and setting her boundaries with her new ex-husband, everything like that. So I feel like, especially if you're a parent, which I am not, but if you are a parent, I feel like this would be super interesting to read, and it definitely gave like the best end of summer vibes. I know that we're definitely in fall now, but it's really, really good to like complete the summer in my mind and finish up with this book. We rated a 4. Next, we have The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. Here's the thing about Catherine Center. So I never want to be rude or disrespectful or anything because obviously it is such a feat to get your book published. I am by no means criticizing anyone who likes this author. It just very clearly has become obvious to Sam and I that this is not the author for us. Last month we also read Hello Stranger by this author, which is a book about face blindness, about an artist who is suffering from face blindness and the romance that she kind of falls into. And this book is specifically talking about a woman who works as a bodyguard, and she specifically has to be the bodyguard for an actor who's going through some family stuff, and so she's trying to be his bodyguard while also not letting anyone know that she's the bodyguard because the main male character, Jack, doesn't want anyone to know that he needs these bodyguards. She doesn't want to stress his family out. So you're kind of playing that where she's pretending to be his girlfriend in order to stay being his bodyguard while not making his family know anything. So it was an interesting premise, and I still feel the same way about Hello Stranger, that it was an interesting premise, but we have seen while reading her books that we can spot every single bump in the road and every single little breadcrumb and every single plot twist from a mile away. We were able to guess a lot of this plot. The entire book, I was just waiting to be right, and that was kind of all I was thinking about. And it wasn't even that I was trying to ruin it for myself, it just felt so obvious to me and obvious to Sam. We both just kept looking at each other like we knew exactly what was going to happen. So that's the reason that I don't feel super strongly about this. I think that we ended up giving this a 3. Yeah, we ended up giving this a 3. I think that we gave The Bodyguard a 2. Really just weren't into it, which sucks because a lot of people really do like Catherine Center, and I do like the premise of her books. I just don't think her writing style is for me. I feel like it also kind of went into more of like that cringier romance, you know, like the things that they were saying. It just was not my vibe, which is very unfortunate because I know that she is well loved by a lot of other booktubers, but just not for me. The next book that we read this month was Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home by Jessa Hastings. This is the 3rd book in the Magnolia Parks universe, but the 2nd Magnolia book. We loved this book. I have quickly become so obsessed with this series, and I didn't see it coming by any means. I feel like I totally thought that it just wasn't going to be something I liked, and then when I liked the Daisy Hate side of things, that first book, which is the last book that I read, I thought that it was kind of like a one-off thing. I thought that once I got back into the Magnolia side that I wasn't going to enjoy the story anymore, but I have just been completely sucked in, absolutely obsessed. If you need a reason to read this series, this is it. This is me telling you to start this series. It is so, so good that you're never going to relate to almost anything that's like happening in the world of this, but the drama and like the found family and the struggles that these couples are going through are surprisingly relatable. While their lives have nothing to do with anything that I could relate to, they're experiencing heartbreak the same, they're hurting each other, they're doing stuff that like you're screaming while you're reading it, like what are you doing? But like their flaws are so perfect while still being, I mean, terrible. I'm not saying that this is anything that you should try to be like at all. I've never been able to embrace a character's flaws as much as I've been able to do it in these books, and so that on its own is like a feat because I feel like it's so hard to make a character have flaws without making them too unlikable. We ended up giving this a 4.25. We really liked it. I'm super excited, and the ending was absolutely crazy, so I'm really excited to read the next one. The way that I felt about Catherine Center, I need you to listen to that again. Lauren Asher's books, also a no. I feel really bad because again, Lauren Asher is another romance author that is super popular and everyone loves her. The premise for her books are always crazy, and I just feel like really unpopular opinionated when I'm telling you this, but we gave this book a 3.5, which I feel like makes it sound like we really like this book, but we didn't. I'm giving it a 3 for being average. Bumped it up by a 0.5 because I really felt like the child that's in this book was portrayed really well. But this is the 2nd book in the Lakefront Billionaire series. You're following Raphael and Ellie. Raphael is a single dad. He has a son who has a medical condition, and Ellie is his son's nanny slash music teacher, and you're following their story and all the traumas that they're going through and everything like that. It was a really good premise, and again, I really felt like the child in this, his name is Nico, I believe, and he was just such a sweetie pie, and I feel like he was portrayed really well, where he was mature and had like a decent dialogue, had likes and dislikes, and was like a true character while still showing signs of being like an 8-year-old, you know. So he was throwing tantrums, he was getting upset, and he was making mistakes and stuff like that, where he still felt like a child, but he felt like a well thought out character. So I really enjoyed his character and everything that he added to the story, but everything else I felt was kind of average. We do think that we're going to finish the series just to be able to like complete it, but I highly doubt that we're going to read anything else by this author. And again, if you like Lauren Asher or you like Catherine Center, I understand, you know, if that is like your style of liking romance. The next book that we read was Six Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. We read that on Kindle, so I don't have it physically, but like, here's a picture of the cover. It is the little novella in the Crowds of Nyaxia series. We really enjoyed it. We gave it a 4.25, and I feel like that's pretty high for a novella. I mean, obviously, I'm judging it based off of the fact that it's supposed to be small. In the story, you are following Lilith, who is a human who has been dying since the second she was born. She's always been very sickly. She's always been prone to illness. And when she was younger, her dad actually cursed a god. They weren't doing well in the crops. He was a farmer, and he actually cursed the god that is super prevalent in their life, in their world. And the god responded by cursing everybody. So everyone is getting sick. No one can eat, no one can grow crops, everything is kind of falling apart. And then you jump many years later, Lilith is older, a lot of her family has sadly passed away, and a lot of other people in the town have passed away. People are just slowly kind of withering, without any other way to describe it, because that's what the sickness does to you. It's like slowly making you like with her. And basically Lilith is a scientist and she is trying to find the cure for this illness. They've tried praying, they've tried sacrificing, they've tried everything else other than just going straight up science. So she's a scientist trying to find the cure because her sister is actually sick and that is the last relative that she has. And she also feels the sickness in herself as well. Vale is the resident vampire that lives a little ways away, and Lilith actually starts interacting with him in hopes that he can help her with this cure, and you're just following where they interact, their eventual love story, stuff like that. I thought it was done really, really well for it being so short. I mean, obviously, again, it's a super thin, tiny book. You're not going to be getting a lot of detail, but for what it was, I felt like it was done really well. It was the perfect amount of romance. 4.25 for that. And I'm very excited to read the second book in that series. I just feel like I have really grown to like Carissa Broadbent's writing, and I think after we finish the series, we're going to go into other books of hers. Next, we have Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I cannot with this book. I felt like I was in a different universe the entire time that I was reading this book. One, because it was really good. I'm not trying to take away from the fact that it was really good, but if you have read Powerless, then you have read Red Queen. It is so insane how much of a similarity, hey, I'm not gonna say anything, but how similar, how drastically similar they are. It is just insane. Basically, what you are, if you've read Powerless, then again, you probably know exactly what I'm gonna say. You are following reds and silvers in this book, and reds are commoners. They have no powers, so they are the slave workers, they are the army, they are all the people that have like the random odds and ends jobs, they are the servants, everything like that. That's what they're doing. Then you have silvers, and they are elite, they are the lords, they are the royalty, they are the bosses. You know, that's the world that they're living in. Definitely a very class system, but you are specifically following Mare, who is a red girl, and she ends up interacting with some people that are silver and gets swept up into their world, swept up into their drama, and kind of has to like fight for her life, honestly. The issue with this and the way that I felt about it is I really wish that I hadn't read Powerless first. I wish that I had gotten to read this and experience this without having everything that happens in Powerless in my mind. We gave this a 4.5. I love this, don't get me wrong, but I wish that I had gotten a true experience of it without having the entire book be fueled by, oh my gosh, that was in Powerless too. You know, like, because again, this book came way earlier. The moment was kind of taken from me because this could have easily been a 5-star book if I had gotten to experience it wholeheartedly in itself. So that was the only thing that was kind of a downer about it. Now, the last book that we have to end this video off is a very interesting book. Obviously, you can see the corners. This is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This was a gamble for us. We do not like sci-fi. Sci-fi is not a genre that I jump into. Like, it is just by no means my genre of choice. I feel like I go into sci-fi the least amount of anything, but the covers are actually what caught our eye and got us into reading these books in general. So if you see, obviously, it's just really cool looking, and obviously we got a really stunning exclusive edition, but the spines of these books have like these cute little things on them, and other books by this author have like a really cool little symbol here, whether it be a house or a wolf or whatever the case may be, depending on the book. We just really thought that they looked so nice together, and from the corner of our eyes at Barnes, it actually caught our eye and I was immediately obsessed. You are following Victor Lawson. He is a human. He is actually living in a world completely run by robots. So he has a father named Geo who is a robot. He has 2 little sidekick characters who are also robots, and he interacts with a new individual who he finds and helps bring back to life, who's also a robot. So it's super interesting. It gives a lot of the same vibes as the droids in Star Wars. So if you like watching Star Wars movies and you like the kind of comedic relief that all of the droids give you, I highly recommend reading this book. The one thing that I will warn about this book, because oh my goodness, it is inappropriate. And I don't think that you would ever assume that, especially based off of the back. I would have never in my wildest dreams thought that it was going to be as sexual as it ended up being. A lot of adult humor, some scenes. I definitely would not recommend this to like a kid that likes robots. This is definitely an adult book, so keep that in mind when reading this, because I warned you. But it's funny. I will say that it's funny. It just was very surprising. I didn't get that at all from the back of this, so take with that what you will. But we really like this author's writing style. Like, I was genuinely laughing out loud, which I haven't done in a really long time in a book, and so I felt like I had an experience that, again, I haven't had in a really long time. I've been reading dark books, romance, you know, fantasy. There hasn't been a lot of just comedic relief, and this book genuinely had me like cracking up where I couldn't like pull it together. I highly recommend it in that regard. We gave it a 3.75 because it was a little slow. I felt like it kind of dragged on a little bit in certain points, but the writing style was really good. The characters were interesting. It's definitely a book where you could go many routes with it. You could take it for just what it is and have like a good laugh, or you could really deep dive into everything that it represents. And that is it overall. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that I gave you some book recommendations. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Obviously, if you really liked authors that I have said I didn't, or vice versa, books are completely an individual experience. I appreciate you so much. Thank you guys for watching, and